No one would buy her, abandoned without clothes in a Wild West market, until a rancher saw her. The market square was alive with the clamor of traders, the clatter of wagon wheels, and the sharp cries of men haggling over cattle, tools, and supplies. Dust rose from the sun-baked street, coating everything in a thin layer of dryness. Among the chaos, near the edge of the crowd where no one paid attention, sat a young woman draped in nothing but a tattered sack that barely covered her shoulders. Her hair was tangled and dusty, her skin scratched from travel and neglect, and her eyes carried exhaustion far deeper than the heat of the day. She had been stripped of everything, her clothes, her possessions, and nearly her dignity, and left to endure the world as if she were already invisible. No one asked why she was there. No one wondered where she came from. And the market continued as though her presence was irrelevant. Some glanced and turned away, unwilling to see her. Others sneered, dismissing her with a word or a gesture. Men muttered among themselves, calling her weak, useless, and unfit for labor. The people of the Wild West rarely hesitated to judge, and she had learned long ago that survival often meant silence and submission. She clutched the thin cloth around her, hugging herself as she tried to shield her body from the glare of the sun and the eyes of strangers. Her knees pressed together, her back hunched. Yet she refused to bow her head completely. A stubborn spark remained in her gaze, though no one around her noticed. She had already cried all the tears the world had tried to force from her, and now she waited. By midday, the sun was high and merciless, and the crowd in the market had begun to thin, leaving behind only the hardest men and the most indifferent onlookers. It was then that a rancher rode into the square, his horse kicking up dust as he dismounted with calm authority. He was a man of weathered hands and quiet strength, used to the hardships of frontier life, and he had come for supplies, not people. But as he tied his horse near the wagons, his eyes fell on her, and something in him shifted. He did not see what the others had: the tattered cloth, the weakness, the supposed uselessness. He saw exhaustion, yes, but also defiance, survival, and a fragile dignity that had not yet been broken. Without a word, he removed his coat and approached her, draping it gently around her shoulders. The fabric fell over her like a shield, warm and protective, and for the first time that day, she looked up fully at someone. The crowd murmured uneasily, unsure why he would extend kindness to someone they had ignored or mocked. But he said nothing else. He simply gave her a look that told her she was seen, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she believed it. The night that followed was quiet, though it was the first quiet she had ever truly felt. In the small cabin at the edge of the ranch, the young woman lay on a bed that was soft beneath her for the first time in weeks, the weight of exhaustion pressing her into the mattress. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint creak of the walls and the distant howl of coyotes, unsure whether the stillness was a gift or a trap. Outside, the rancher worked through his own routine, repairing fences and checking livestock. But he never entered her space uninvited. His silence, deliberate and respectful, spoke louder than words ever could. In the days that followed, she began to regain strength. She washed, clothed herself in the clean garments the rancher had provided, and took small steps in exploring the farm. Each task she attempted, feeding the animals, carrying water, tending the fields, was done at her own pace. The rancher observed from a distance, offering guidance only when it was necessary and never imposing his will. Slowly, a routine formed that was no longer dictated by fear or survival, but by choice and ability. Their communication was careful and deliberate. Words were few at first. She spoke sparingly, her voice cautious, shaped by weeks of mistrust, while he listened patiently, never pressing, never judging. Through gestures, shared labor, and the quiet of daily life, a mutual understanding began to take root. She learned which plants in the fields were safe to eat, which herbs could soothe aches and fevers, and how to move through the land without exhausting herself or the animals. The rancher, in turn, learned to see the land as she did, with respect and careful observation, rather than mere survival. At night, the fire outside the cabin became a small ritual. She would sit beside it, letting the warmth chase away the chill, while he sat nearby without intrusion. Sometimes they exchanged glances, fleeting and tentative, but meaningful. She felt the first stirrings of trust, the fragile certainty that she was no longer alone in a world that had turned its back on her. One evening, she finally spoke her name, offering it as a gift of identity she had been forced to hide for so long. The rancher repeated it carefully, honoring the sound, and in that simple act, a bridge was built, a connection between two lives, one of rescue and one of survival, bound together not by ownership or debt, but by choice and respect. In the quiet of the ranch, amidst the endless plains and open skies, she began to understand what it meant to be seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. The men dismounted abruptly, their eyes hard, voices sharp as they demanded she be returned to them, claiming some right that had long since vanished. The rancher's voice was calm but firm, refusing their claim, insisting that she belonged to no one. The men laughed, sneering at his defiance, certain that one man alone could not defy them and their guns. But Nayeli did not flinch. She stepped forward, her posture unyielding, and spoke in her own language, a language that carried centuries of history, survival and pride. Though the men did not understand her words, the power behind them was undeniable. She was not a commodity. She was not property. She was a person who had endured far more than they could imagine, and her strength shone through in every movement. One of the men drew his gun, testing the waters, but the rancher reacted with swift precision, firing a warning shot into the dirt at their feet. The echo of the rifle cracked across the plains, startling even the most hardened of the intruders. Nayeli's gaze did not waver. She did not step back. The riders hesitated, realizing that their confidence and cruelty were meaningless against the unspoken force of her resolve and the unwavering support of the rancher. Slowly, muttering threats that carried no weight, they mounted their horses and retreated, disappearing into the horizon as dust swallowed them whole. That night, as the ranch lay silent under a sky thick with stars, Nayeli spoke more freely than ever before. Her English was halting, broken by pauses and hesitation, but the stories she shared were rich with memory of villages destroyed, family lost, and the long, relentless struggle to survive. The rancher listened without interruption, understanding that her words were not cries for pity, but fragments of a life carved from endurance. He realized that he had not saved her. She had saved herself countless times before he arrived. His only role had been to see her, to respect her strength, and to stand beside her when the world tried to claim her. By the time the fire burned low and the night settled in, a bond had been forged, one of mutual respect, unspoken understanding, and the knowledge that both had faced hardship and emerged stronger. The seasons passed slowly, carrying with them quiet changes that transformed the ranch and the lives upon it. Summer's harsh sun softened into the cool light of autumn, and the fields, once bare and unyielding, began to thrive under Nayeli's careful hands. She planted seeds with knowledge, passed down through generations, tending each row with precision and patience. Where the land had once offered only survival, it now yielded abundance, responding to the touch of someone who understood it deeply. The rancher worked alongside her, not as master but as partner, learning to see the land through her eyes, appreciating its rhythms, its needs, and its hidden strengths. Communication between them grew easier with each passing day. Words were no longer scarce. Gestures and glances turned into shared understanding. The rancher taught her how to read the skies, predict storms, and navigate the open plains. She, in return, shared the secrets of the plants, the rivers and the animals, showing him how to move across the land without wasting its gifts. Their histories, shaped by hardship and survival, intertwined without erasing the past, allowing them both to exist fully in the present. The outside world, once threatening and loud, faded into memory. No more riders came from the market. No voices demanded her return. And the ghost rancher, once known only for his solitude, became something different in the minds of others. A man who chose humanity over indifference. Nayeli's presence was her own choice, renewed each day, and with it came a sense of belonging neither had thought possible. One evening, as the sun sank low and the sky turned gold, Nayeli approached the ranch house carrying a small carved symbol, worn smooth with age and marked with Apache designs. She placed it carefully on the porch, a gesture of trust, of identity, and of home. The rancher nodded silently, recognizing the depth of what had been given. It was not just a token, it was a declaration that she was no longer abandoned, no longer invisible, and that this place, this land, these people, this life was hers to claim freely. As night fell and stars spread across the endless plains, the ranch held a stillness that was no longer heavy but shared, a quiet marked by dignity, freedom, and the bonds they had forged. Nayeli, once left behind by the world, had found a home where she could be fully herself. And the rancher, once resigned to solitude, realized that survival alone was not enough. Companionship, respect, and trust were what made life worth living. Together, they had created a place where neither fear nor abandonment could take hold. A sanctuary under the vast western sky, alive with hope and quiet strength.